Well, there's no doubt that many of the visitors who leave Port Macquarie after the holiday season take away stories about our amazing animal-filled skies. And if you're a local, you've almost certainly witnessed that amazing sight many times before, when thousands upon thousands of flying foxes stream across the sunset as they make their way across to the North Shore, or wherever in fact they go. But even though it's part of life here for us, so few of us know exactly where those flying creatures are going, or why. And some of us don't even know exactly what they are. Nikki and John Edwards are here tonight to set us straight on all of these issues and more. Tell us, John, start us off, are these creatures bats or related to Batman at all in any way?
You probably could argue that they're related to Batman because their DNA is not very different to ours. So there is a similarity.
But are they? They're not bats though, are they? Not well, technically.
Yes, they are. There are two classes of bats. Okay. The megabats and the microbats. The megabats are the fruit eaters and nectar and pollen, whilst the microbats are insect eaters.
Oh, okay. So a flying fox is a type of bat.
It is a megabat, yeah.
There you go. I've learnt something already. This is why I brought you in. And I told the brief for you both before you came in, Nikki and John, was that I would be asking all the dumb questions tonight, and that's certainly what I'm going to be doing. But here in Port Macquarie, it's an amazing sight, isn't it? Most people are dumbfounded when they come here and see that for the first time.
It should really be a major tourist attraction here, watching the flying foxes fly out. They head out about 20 minutes after sunset looking for food. That's where they're heading off for, and it's quite a spectacle. We often go in there and watch it, and we often talk to people when we're in there.
And Nikki, is it only at certain times of the year that the bats do this?
We always have a camp of flying foxes. They can be made up of 3 different types of what we call mega or fruit bats. They can be blacks, little reds and the grey-headed flying fox. But when we actually have some of our eucalypts in flower is when we get huge influxes of flying foxes. Like at the moment, we've got bloodwoods just coming into flower.
Right, so that's why at this time of the year they're here for the food, like you said, John, before. Right, okay. Why do they take off from that Coolumbung Creek area just before sundown, it seems to be, or around sunset? Why do they take off in such a mass exodus at that time of the day?
I guess why do humans all get up in the morning and things? To them, that's their morning. They've got to get out and get the food. If you're the last man out, you might miss out on a feed. So generally 20 minutes, you can almost set your clock by it in normal weather conditions, is when they will leave the camp and start heading. It could be north, it could be south, could be west, just wherever the food is at the time.
So is that right? They go different places depending on where the food is? That's interesting, because to me it always seems like they're heading over to the North Shore. I always tell my son, because he asks me where are they all going, and I have to appear knowledgeable, of course. So I tell him they're going to the North Shore, where we went on the punt.
They follow the nectar flow. It's all food driven.
Do they go very far though, looking for food, or does it depend again?
Up to about 25k during an evening. They're capable of flying out that far, and maybe even a little bit further.
And it's interesting too, isn't it, how they stick in a bit of a slipstream, it seems. Is there a reason for that, or is it just their nature, what they do?
No idea why they do it, other than they may get some benefit, like we do when we draft if we're swimming or cycling. I don't know.
Safety in numbers, perhaps? Yeah.
Certainly that.
So what is it about these creatures that appeal so much to humans? Because are they a little bit human-like? Are they very intelligent, Nikki?
Oh, incredibly. I have been raising orphans for the last 3 years, and the babies are just so human and very responsive, with fantastic personalities, which of course once we've raised them we have to dehumanise them so that they are then able to fend for themselves in the wild. Often babies we have where the mothers will be caught in netting. The mother can be caught on barbed wire. We've rescued babies from power lines. Babies can be caught. We actually had one a couple of weeks ago in a car park in Port Macquarie. And this is only a little boy that we've got. We believe that he may still have been with Mum. Mum may have gone on the garage door to rest. He might have got off, and Mum took off. And there was this poor little flying fox, which we've now got in care.
Oh, he survived.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a bit traumatic. He apparently had been in the underground car park for at least 5 days before
Wow.
we were called. A lot of people can be very frightened of flying foxes. The lady who actually reported it had hoped that the baby would just take off himself.
Is it still the case, John, that people are frightened of bats and are worried about what a bat can do to them?
I think they get as a species, they get a lot of bad publicity. And whilst a very, very small percentage of bats do carry a disease called Australian bat lyssavirus, and it's less than 0.01% carry the antibodies, so even fewer actually carry the disease. There's been in the last 14 years, there's been one death from Australian bat lyssavirus. There have been 29,000 people killed on the Australian roads during the same period.
Yep.
So why are people concerned about the flying foxes and the bats? You wouldn't normally approach them, and we tell people not to, but if people are inadvertently bitten or scratched, then they go and get a series of injections because the rabies vaccine provides protection against the disease. You wouldn't want to get the disease because there is no cure if you act once it manifests, but there's only been one death, so there's a lot of
Bad publicity, like you say.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing statistic you just mentioned there, but very few of the bats actually carry the disease. That's something that most people wouldn't know. Do bats actually deliberately go after humans?
No, bats
Not like magpies.
No. Well, magpies are generally protecting the area where they're nesting.
I've had many bad experiences with magpies.
No, I mean bats keep away from people. They're an very intelligent animal, but why would they want association with humans? And they don't. They'll come into our fruit trees and things, but no. Unless you go to an injured one or you pick one up, or sometimes people with the microbats, people might leave a bedroom window open and find one's coming during the night, and normally that would sleep during the day and leave the next night. But if they inadvertently grab it or grab the curtain and get bitten, then they should go and see their doctor.
So, I know that you're here to promote but the idea of me grabbing my curtain in the morning and getting a bat, it happens to be wound up in the fabric, that just sends a shiver up my spine. So tell me, Nikki, why are you so fond of them? When you tell me about hand raising them and the bond that you can form with these animals while you're doing that.
They are just very responsive to human communication. You can have a very aggressive bat, which this little one we rescued from the car park. He was very frightened, very disorientated, very hungry, and certainly was standing his ground when he was picked up from the car park. But within 24 hours we were able to hand feed him, and he now has joined the other 3 bats that we've got in care, and they have formed a very social group. And as I say, they have such personalities that they are like looking at humans.
They've got very sort of childlike faces, don't they?
Just beautiful eyes. The most stunning eyes.
Yeah.
Their eyesight is 7 times greater than ours, and
Wow.
that's for them to be able to see the white pollen and the white flowers at night as they're flying.
And they've got night vision, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a myth to say that all bats are blind or as blind as a bat, because even little microbats use echolocation. They have poor eyesight, but they can still see.
That's really interesting. Blind as a bat is a complete
Myth.
false expression. Wow. What should we be saying instead? I want the blind as my grandmother. Might be more appropriate. Sorry, Nan, if you're listening. But what do you feed a baby bat when you're raising it, or a bat that's come into your care?
Well, depending on the age of the baby, we will feed them up to 5-6 times a day, particularly if they're preemie, it could be 6 times.